Hello everyone, welcome to this presentation. I would like to thank you for your interest in our research. My name is Da Silva and I'm going to present the results of an investigation conducted by my colleagues and I on the writing process of encyclopedic definitions for a frame-based specialized dictionary. The purpose of this presentation is to address the findings and perspectives from our analysis of Dicionário Olímpico in Portuguese, or Olympic Dictionary. Before I start talking about the research itself, I would like to introduce the Olympic Dictionary to you so you can have a better idea of what this investigation is about. First of all, the Olympic Dictionary is a frame-based dictionary that describes the lexicon of the 40 Summer Olympic sports. The dictionary was developed by the Brazilian research group Semantec, and it was launched in 2016, the year Brazil was the host of the Olympic Games. The dictionary is structured in 3 levels: the sport level, the frames or scenarios level, and the lexical units or words level. I will briefly describe each of these levels. The superframe level presents general information about the Olympic sports and also offers access to the other 2 levels. What you see on your screen is a general view of the superframe football page. It is a bit small, but the next slides offer a better view of each part. Taking a closer look into the superframe page, we see a general description of the sport. On the left, we see the word and scenarios lists of the sport. As we scroll, we can see a conceptual map indicating the frames of the sport and the relations between them. The map offers hyperlinks to the frame level. At the bottom of the sport page, we can see a trivia section followed by hyperlinks to related sports. The next level is the scenario level, here illustrated by the scenario players from football. Again, this is the general view of the page. This level is quite similar to the superframe level in terms of content. Here we can see a description of the scenario, followed by a picture that illustrates some aspect of the scenario. On the left side, we can see a list of the words that play a role in this specific scenario and a list of related scenarios. At the bottom of the scenario page, we see a conceptual map illustrating the relations between the scenario we are consulting and words or scenarios from the same sport. The third level is the word level, here illustrated by the word attacker from football. This is a general view of the word page. On this page, we can see the scenario to which the word is connected. In this case, the word attacker is connected to the scenario players. This is also a hyperlink from which users can access the scenario level. Right below, we see the variants when the word has one. After that, we see the translation equivalent and the example, both in English. On the left side, we can see the list of words related to the word we are looking at. After this brief contextualization, now I'm going to address the aspects of the research itself. The objective of our investigation was to analyze the frame descriptions of Olympic Dictionary to develop a standardization strategy for the writing of frame definitions to the set of ontological frames. The need for such investigation arose from the revision of the Olympic Dictionary, from which our team identified some problems regarding the description of the frames. The first problem concerns the lack of content standardization, and it can be seen as a result of the autonomy each editor had when deciding which information was relevant enough to be included in the definitions. The second problem relates to the lack of format standardization, and once again can be seen as a result of the autonomy given to the editors. These three examples illustrate the differences regarding the use of bold type, the extension of the definitions, the paragraph division. In other words, each definition was written based on subjective criteria. To some extent, the team assumed each sport had its own structure, thus it would not be adequate to use the same strategies to describe all sports. Considering the dictionary presents two types of frames of events and ontological frames, for this study we chose to analyze the ontological frames. While frames of events tend to be more specific since they refer to the actions performed during the competitions, ontological frames can be characterized as transversal frames, since they describe aspects that are present in many, if not all, sports. From this study, we were able to identify 6 types of ontological frames: competition officials, athletes, competition venue, equipment, technical team, and result. The methodological procedures can be divided in 2 phases. The first phase consisted of a general analysis of the content of each type of ontological frame. Our objective was to classify all information presented by the definitions of the 6 ontological frames and compose a list of information for each frame. From the lists of content presented by the ontological frames, we are able to identify a relatively wide set of information in the sense that not all contents can be applied to all the sports. To the analysis of content, we added the analysis of words, expressions that were used to name the frames. Regarding this list, we identified that each type of ontological frame presented a varied set of designations. We will illustrate both results in the next slides. To illustrate the results of the analysis of the definition content, we show here the content list for the frame athletes, which is composed by information such as team composition, athlete's position, classification based on weight, type of competition, disciplines, categories, performance predictive features, information regarding the athlete's uniform, type of athlete and competition in which they compete, individual attributions, and principles and competencies. We highlighted information that does not apply to all sports. From the definition of the frame players from volleyball, we can see how information such as team composition, athlete's position, individual attributions, and information regarding the athlete's uniform are presented. Regarding the analysis of the words and expressions used to name the ontological frames, we were able to identify a varied set of designations for each of the 6 frames. Here we show the list of names used to refer to athletes, followed by a number indicating the frequency in which they occur in the dictionary. We found 12 different names, as you can see on your screen. Here we show some screenshots to illustrate how some of these names appear in the dictionary. The second phase of our analysis was designed for the purpose of refining the results from phase 1. considering the set of information identified in phase 1 was considered broad. In phase 2, we looked for ways to group the sports based on similarities among them. Once we established criteria for grouping the sports, we proceed to the content analysis of the frame descriptions per group of sports. The activity of grouping the sports was based on the proposal for a sports categorization from González. By adopting such a proposal, we ended up classifying the Olympic sports into 6 different groups: net and court sports, field and bat sports, target and precision sports, track sports, aesthetic and technical combinatorial sports, and combat and fighting sports. From the second content analysis of the frame descriptions, we were able to identify a higher degree of standardization inside the groups of sport, which can be seen as a result of the similarities among the sports. This activity revealed the need to both relocate information from the scenario level to either the superframe or to the word level, and to exclude information, for example, using attributes such as honesty, courage, respect, equality to characterize athletes, even though these are not exclusive to the sports context. From this screenshot, we can see the 2 levels of standardization identified for the frame athletes. Information such as athletes' positions and performance predictive features revealed to be representative of most sports, since they not only demonstrate a high frequency on the actual definitions of the dictionary, but also could be added to those definitions which did not present such information. On the other hand, information such as team composition and classification about weight revealed to be representative of a standardization on the sport group level, since their frequencies are higher inside specific groups such as net and court sports and combat and fighting sports, for example. Regarding the need for relocating information, our analysis offered guidelines for determining the level of information that frame definitions should present, and as a consequence, offered criteria for similar decisions on the superframe and lexical unit levels. Another contribution relates to the need for excluding information. From the analysis, we found some definitions that presented information external to the Olympic context, such as doping, prohibition, and non-Olympic descriptions of the sports, and even information external to the sport context, such as values and principles that apply to other social contexts, such as honesty, respect. As an example of information to be relocated from the frame to the superframe level, we can mention this excerpt from the frame players from tennis, which presents the sport categories, and for this reason would fit the superframe better than the frame athletes. An example of information to be relocated from the frame to the lexical unit level, we can mention this excerpt from the frame players from Rugby 7, which presents the athlete's individual attributions for the hooker, the fly half, half scrum, the center, the fullback winger. Finally, to exemplify the information to be excluded, we can mention this excerpt from the frame horse ride combination from equestrian, which presents those information we mentioned earlier, such as courage, confidence. In conclusion, our study confirmed the possibility of standardizing the writing of the ontological frame definitions. From a practical perspective, we could identify the categories and subcategories of information to be described. Considering the dictionary does not present definitions for lexical units, our analysis revealed that many frame definitions try to fill this gap by describing lexical units. In this sense, our research points out the relevance of adding definitions for the dictionary's lexical units. In general, we can classify our findings as encouraging, since by grouping sports according to their similarities, the specificities of each group of sport were taken into consideration. Further, our standardization proposal helps to create an identity for the dictionary and makes the editor's work easier by pointing directions for the writing of definitions. Apart from the answers specifically related to the research question, our study allowed us to make considerations regarding other content and structure elements. The results related to the frame level bring some implications to the other levels of the dictionary. By establishing standards for the frame level, we are indirectly doing the same for the superframe and the lexical unit levels. At this point, it's worthy mentioning that currently lexical units do not present definitions. Of course, we also faced some challenging cases, and here we can mention the information regarding athletes' uniform, since in many cases this information was presented in both athletes and equipment frames, and they seem to fit in both. We are still looking for criteria to make this decision. Another challenge has to do with deciding to what extent information overlapping is acceptable. As another example of the implications of this standardization proposal, we can mention the influence over the process of identifying frames. For golf, 5 different frames could be replaced by or incorporated to the structure of the frame competition venue, for example. As a last point, we must mention the repercussions for the development of the Paralympic dictionary. We already ran some tests following this methodology and got exciting results, such as the identification of a new ontological frame related to Paralympic classification and its information categories. Thank you for watching. We're looking forward to continuing this discussion during the AfriLex conference. You can also contact us directly by email.